Q1 is over.
Wow. I think the market is shifting.
Yeah, that also happened pretty quick, yeah. But before we do that, it's come to our attention that we have not done a good job of introducing ourselves. So just real quick, we'll just get that handled. So David Barker here. I don't think you need an introduction.
I hope not. I've been here 40 years. Yeah. And I ain't going anywhere.
And then we have Laura Lichtenstein, our qualifying broker, and we have Gabrielle Vigil here, my co-leader, and then myself, Kyle Klein. So there you go. Now you know who we are. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the start to this year. So at the end of last year, we were on the fence going, we don't really know which way the market's heading. So what's happened?
Boy, was that a dramatic shift.
It was.
I mean, we saw those sales plummet. We saw average days on market increase. Inventory is still challenged. It's better than last year, but it is still very low. Average prices are down. Interest rates are up. You know, this is a big shift in our market.
But I think things are starting to level out a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that interest rates have kind of topped out. Who knows? They're between 6.5% and 7%. Up a quarter, down a quarter. I think inventory has come up. It went down over the winter, but I think it's heading back up. Starting a couple weeks ago, we saw some increases in inventory. We do have a couple months worth of inventory on the market under $1 million, but I think we're steadying out a little bit.
Well, let's talk about that real quick, because I think there's some difference between perception and reality when it comes to the data I'm seeing. Because when I'm looking at the charts here, March of last year, we only had 158 homes for sale. March of this year, we had 325.
That's a big difference.
So in a weird way, inventory was actually up, but it didn't quite feel that way for some reason. It felt more sluggish and challenged. And I think we see that reflected actually in the days on market. So there wasn't as much movement of the inventory in the market that we've become accustomed to in the last couple of years.
And I think buyers are not as anxious.
Yeah.
I think, with increased interest rates, they're not all just jumping on every listing that comes on the market. I think that sellers who bought with 2.5% interest rates are happy to sit on those loans. And we're not seeing as many multiple offer situations. We're not seeing properties flying off the market in 5 minutes. We've probably got an average of 60, 70 days on the market for homes.
Yeah.
So.
And I think prices are always, realistically, they are very quick to go up, and they're very sticky on the way down.
Yeah.
And then I think what we've seen is some real concern on the part of buyers with the increased interest rates. Is this a time when they want to jump into a property that's much higher priced, or they want to sit and wait? So I've seen buyers just decide to sit on the sidelines for a little bit to kind of wait and see what happens. And I think the result of that is the fewer transactions, and hence longer days on market and the increased inventory.
Yeah.
What we're seeing on the transaction side, Gabs, because I know, for a while there, it kind of felt like crickets were chirping in the background.
A little bit. I mean, it's funny looking at this information here is about how I would explain it. January was kind of a typical January for us, maybe a little lower than we would have hoped for. But in February, things really kind of slowed down for us.
Yeah.
And it was interesting I was actually talking to Laura about this earlier today. I saw a ton of terminations coming through in February, a ton. And then in March, not as many. So it's interesting to see this roller coaster that's happened in the first quarter. But it feels like now things are really ramping up. We're starting to see a lot more activity around the office. All of our transaction coordinators have been very busy.
Yes. The creative team has been out photographing homes like nuts. So I know they're busy. We're taking their time doing this right now.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
So is this a temporary anomaly, or is this the start of a trend of getting back to a very active market?
I think we're headed back towards an active market. The interesting thing here is, we've talked in the past about how sellers have had the upper hand for so long, and where we're at right now, neither party really has the upper hand. They're really on even playing fields at this point. So I think that's a big part of why we were seeing those terminations is there's going to be some interesting negotiations happening now.
Yeah, and I think that is part of what's going to keep us from just skyrocketing again.
Right.
That's why, you know, I will reiterate. I think things are leveling off a bit. I think we're gonna see more inventory coming on for the summer. We always seem to.
Yeah.
Maybe prices go down just a smidge.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. It's tough.
I'm going to take the contrarian view to that. I think the pressure is still going to be up on pricing. I don't think we're going to see much increase in pricing, but the reality is there are so many reasons that people have to move to Santa Fe.
Yep.
And by and large, our market is driven by newcomers into our community, and there are so many good reasons for them to leave the places where they are. Santa Fe is a very attractive place to them, and our prices compared to many other spots in the market, very affordable.
Yeah.
And we don't have tornadoes.
Yeah, that's a plus.
Yeah, currently, yeah. Okay, so just a little shift then. If you're a buyer entering the market right now and you're like, okay, I want to get an understanding of what to expect, what would you tell them? What would you expect in the next couple of months?
I think it depends on the price range.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, I think under $1 million, I think it's going to be lively, and they should expect to see some competition.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, maybe between $1 million and $2 million it's slow, but it looks like the $2 million market is moving quickly.
How'd you like the March numbers in the luxury market? 4 closings for the entire month of March.
Yes.
That is an all-time low. I can't remember when our market has been that slow, over $1 million.
Well, and let's talk about luxury. So we kind of define it now. We're looking at it like 1.5 million and above. It used to be 1 million above, but you know we've seen prices increase so much that realistically the luxury market, if you will, starts at 1.5, 2 million, and so that's our benchmark now, looking upwards. You know, February. So just a quick correction. So it was February there was only 4 closings. March actually picked back up. And this is where we're seeing it across all of these different market segments, where February was this real low point.
Yeah.
And it just felt like the brakes were really applied. People were reassessing what they were going to be able to afford, what they were going to do. And now it feels like we're kind of back on that upward trajectory. And what that spells for the summer is going to be interesting, because we always get more inventory. But we also get more interest in buyers. And so it's like, is it going to be balanced? Is it going to increase in pricing? I kind of agree. I think the stickiness of the pricing is, it's there, and it's going to take a lot for it to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So luxury. We've also seen a lot of listings come on this month, and it feels like luxury is more seasonal than other segments of the market. Is that a fair assessment?
I believe it is.
I think
think the luxury end of the market, you're dealing with more buyers and sellers who are not in a position where they have to buy or they have to sell. That transaction, whether they get into it or not, is discretionary. So they're evaluating a lot of factors in their life, and part of the hesitation is what is happening in the economy. Changes in the economy and fears and concerns out there typically make people hold back on making significant financial decisions.
Especially if they're discretionary.
Yes.
Right.
But the spec market over $1 million is still very active. We see a lot of product still coming out of the ground.
So I was talking to some of the other members of the Forbes Global Properties group, and they're still seeing very strong luxury sales. And I think for us, looking at just the views we're getting on our luxury listings and the inquiries and so forth, I would argue that market is still going to be pretty strong this year. I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
I agree with that. I don't think it will.
And I think a lot of those purchases are cash.
They still are.
Yes.
Yep. Vast majority are still
Yeah.
cash. Yep. Okay, let's move on to land. This is kind of an interesting one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, land slowed down quite a bit, but it's picking back up again.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And land sales are also frequently seasonal. Because who wants to think about building in the winter, and who wants to go out looking at land in the
Right.
winter when it's
Yeah.
cold and snowy and muddy? So those will tend to pick up in the spring and summer, but I don't think they ever really plummeted.
Well, what we saw was a slow amount of sales, a consistency in listings,
Yeah.
right? But the sales kind of slowed down to the point where it's like, okay, we're seeing a shift here. But I feel like the last 6 weeks might have erased all of that. It seems like it picked right back up. So, it's,
sure has.
you know, this comes back to I think about the end of last year where the three of us sat down. Laura, you were gone that time, but in the discussion, we all had a lurking suspicion that we were going to start out slow, and then as the year progressed, the market was going to continue to get stronger and stronger and competitive again. And from the indications I'm seeing here, whether or not this is a trend, it's too early, right? It's too early to declare this a trend, but it's feeling like that was a pretty accurate prediction.
Yeah.
And so with land sales, like right now, I'm looking at the charts we have here. Inventory is still steady. The number of sold properties is it's gone up, but it's still a little lower than it was this time last year. But the days on market has dropped significantly again. So it's hard to really predict. Yeah.
Yeah, I think construction costs have also come down a little bit,
Yeah.
and that will affect land buyers, of course.
And developers who maybe had quite the list of projects
Right.
are maybe again looking at new options.
And of course, the biggest challenge about that whole issue is getting a permit out of the city or the county.
Yeah.
They keep talking about trying to streamline the process. I don't think that's ever happened, and I don't think it's gonna happen now. So it is a challenge, but it speaks to the depth of the interest we have from people wanting to get into this market and low inventory.
Right.
That's the only way to overcome it, new construction.
Well, and the issue of, right, the population versus the inventory, that's not unique to us. That's nationwide. There's so much population in the US and the inventory is, lower than it's been in a long time. So how else to meet that demand than build new properties?
Right. And what's the impact of Los Alamos on the Santa Fe market now? Because they're still hiring, they're still bringing people in, right?
Yeah, and like that number is significant. I mean, it's in the thousands, and so those are good paying jobs. Highly educated, good paying jobs typically, and so I feel like that always has a trickle down effect on our market because you have different sort of competing interests now for those properties. So anything on the north side, like north of Agua Fria, is a prime target for that. And
Yes.
I would say I'm not really surprised at seeing the popularity that we see out at Aldea, right? Because that's an easy
Less.
jump on point for $599, or the Zocalo condos and things like that. There's going to be a lot more opportunity, I think, in that northwest quadrant to see developments continue, because where are all these people going to go? There's only so many mesa tops up in Los Alamos you can build on, right?
Yeah, but you gotta wonder where Los Alamos retirees are going.
Yeah, that's the
Because
other question.
that's why they're hiring, part of why they're hiring is because all the boomers are retiring.
If they're retiring, yeah. I mean, some of them are going to continue. They love what they do, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, it is interesting, and we've seen now Netflix come into our market, and like they're bringing in a lot of different folks to our market, right? So we have the film industry, we have Los Alamos. I'm gonna just say it, like even the cannabis industry, they've been finding growing opportunities in some of the valleys north of us, and so you always have the tourism, the state component here, but it feels like things have diversified in the last couple of years, which
So
is refreshing.
I have a slightly different question that I'm curious about. Over the last couple of years, we had such a tremendous incoming number of buyers buying up properties, many times sight unseen, many times very quickly in a rushed fashion. I'm curious because we've had experience with people moving to Santa Fe only a year or two later to find out it wasn't what they were really expecting. So do you think that we might have a real jump in inventory from people who bought in the last 2 years, who all of a sudden decide they need to go back home where they moved from, or that Santa Fe wasn't what they were hoping for?
I wonder if that might be offset by the fact that they got such low interest rates.
I had the same thought.
Yes,
Yeah,
good
that's
point.
a good
Yeah.
point. I mean, that low interest rate is a real challenge now. So I don't remember if it was the Wall Street Journal or who put it out, but their research suggests that 97% of folks with mortgages have a lower rate than today's offered mortgage rate. And so it begs the question, are those people going to sell anytime soon if they're at such a low rate? I mean, obviously life happens, family moves, jobs, things like that. But, it's like, maybe I'm speaking just for myself here, but it's like, you're locked in at a good rate, as long as you can do improvements on your home and make it yours, we're gonna have another inventory challenge to do that.
Why would you want to sell and then borrow more at 4% higher?
Right, exactly.
So the National Realtors Association statistics used to say the average home buyer traded up or traded out every 7 years.
Yeah.
Where's that number now, Kyle?
It's above 10, I believe now.
I think it's at 11.
I think
Yeah, I think it's 11,
11%.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's like as the asset cost goes up, people have to think a lot harder around making those choices. And so, in a weird way, I think we've set ourselves up in a situation where between building low interest rates and just the general population, this inventory situation there's no easy way out. And I think policymakers got a big job on their hand there too to try to figure it out.
Yeah, but you and I have talked about the lenders, the big banks especially, being more ready to foreclose on those low interest rate loans.
Yes.
So that they can take that money back and
Get a higher rate.
get it
Get a higher rate.
out at
Yeah.
at a higher rate. Yeah. So I don't.
Well, we can read all the
anticipate-
articles, all the lenders who've been in the business the last couple of years are losing money now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you very much for the long-term fixed interest rate that I got on my house.
Likewise. I'll put mine in that hat as well.
Yeah. I mean, we're not complaining about it, but it is an interesting challenge moving forward.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are in that boat, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
you can think of at least 3 people for sure in this room who are in that boat.
Yeah.
Imagine how many others there are out there.
Millions and millions. I mean, the refinance rate the last couple of years were insane.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I loved reading one article just recently from a expert economist who was alleging that we're going to get back to that low interest rate environment by the end of the year or in 2024. I wish I could share his optimism, but I candidly do not.
I don't either. I think we're staying at 7% and above. I have one lender I spoke with who says she thinks it's even going to go up higher,
Wow.
possibly close to 10.
I am not in that camp. I think we're going to bump along and go through
Yeah.
little gyrations, and of course, it's all going to be based on inflation.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we have trouble with inflation, the rates are going to go up. That's going to depress our market
Yeah.
and sales and values. And if we get inflation under control, or when we do, that is really going to bring interest rates down, and that'll change our market dramatically.
Well, I think world events will also have an effect. If God forbid, we end up in a war in Russia and Europe,
Yeah.
interest rates could come down, but I'd
We have bigger fish to fry at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
prefer not to see it
Yeah.
happen that way.
Yeah.
So
One of the other interesting changes I'm starting to see in our market is think about it from the brokerage level, like Barker Realty and all the other brokers in town. We've seen a lot of changes there just in the last few years.
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We have a handful of new qualifying brokers. We've got Drew, who's now a qualifying broker at Sotheby's. Drew's a great guy. We have Matt over at Santa Fe Properties. We have Coldwell Banker, that company has sold twice, and Beverly is still a qualifying broker there. And I'm seeing a surge of a lot of new, younger brokers coming into the market.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're seeing several new younger brokers here that we've taken on over the past few weeks and months. So
Yeah, that honestly has me at least pretty optimistic about our local, real estate world. It feels like there's more opportunities right now to do things better. Competition. I like competition because it feels like it's a problem to solve, right? It's an opportunity to do better, and so, as we're talking about the market conditions, in the back of my mind, I'm just saying, it's like, okay, there's challenges here. And the 4 of us and the rest of our staff, we're here to meet those challenges. And to me, that's exciting. That's not something that keeps me up at night. It's more of like, okay, every day let's roll up the sleeves and get it done. So it'll be interesting to see how different offices handle these various changes to our market. You know, I like to think that we have to move quickly.
Yes.
Right? We have to be very nimble, which might be more challenged by some of the larger offices. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting year to see how these things shake out. I'm excited for it.
I think this is going to be a very good year.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like the last 2 years that we had, and I'm glad for that.
Yes.
There was just too much commotion, too many people under pressure to make a quick decision, and that does not lead to good business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Things were moving so quickly that you had rushed buyers and rushed brokers, and like you said, we saw the E&O stuff that we were hearing about. It was, oh my gosh.
For those of you at home, E&O is errors and omissions. It's the insurance necessary to cover screw-ups.
Yeah. Because people didn't have enough time to do their due diligence. And, people are getting rushed into purchasing homes without doing inspections.
Right.
Which is scary in itself. But, now, again, with sellers and buyers being on the same playing field, they can actually do inspections now, and they
Yes.
can negotiate those items that might be pain points.
Yeah.
So that's a much better situation for people to be in than just, I gotta buy it and hope that it works out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the real source of the significant increase in concerns and errors and omissions complaints we've seen in the market really have been a result of buyers and sellers making a rushed decision.
Absolutely.
Time and time again, what we find is that somebody felt pressured into acting too quickly.
Yep.
They bought it sight unseen. There was a recommendation within an inspection report that something be looked at a little more thoroughly and carefully. The buyer waived it, only to find that turned out to be a significant problem after closing. None of us like to hear about those scenarios.
No, there's been a lot of pressure on buyers over the past couple of years.
So a couple other little things I want to throw out there, just wild card ideas. Commercial. So I think locally our commercial market is strong.
It's
because,
strong.
We're very limited on inventory even there, compared to even homes. Like it's very tight, it's a very challenging market. But on a national level, I think that's where they need to be keeping their eyes on it, because if there's going to be a major shift in terms of these JP Morgans and stuff like that, it's these massive $1 trillion holdings they have in commercial real estate, and cities are now
Oh boy,
not occupied.
You're seeing office vacancy skyrocket in many metropolitan
Yeah.
areas. That's not true in Santa Fe. Our office market is still very strong, as is retail and particularly industrial or storage.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's strong all across the country. Retail, we're wondering about that. That's still good and strong in Santa Fe, but nationally, when you compare what the United States have in terms of retail square footage per capita, we are way overbuilt compared to many other countries.
Well, and I think of downtown Manhattan or Chicago or San Francisco, a lot of these major office developments are sitting empty currently.
Yes.
And there's, especially in this high interest rate market, because they have to live by the same rules that we do. There's going to be a reckoning coming, and I feel like if we're going to look ahead this year of what's going to shake up potentially the real estate world, I'd keep my eyes on that. I'd keep my eyes on the big commercial operations in those other areas.
I don't think a day goes by where I don't read about some big institutional investor who's walking away from a property.
Right.
They have no guarantees on the loan. They just sign the deed back over to the lender and are walking away from it.
Wow.
Well, if we're looking for higher density housing and different opportunities in some of these spaces, maybe it'll come from there. Who knows?
Yeah.
And that is a new trend nationally, where they're taking office buildings and converting them to residential.
Right.
It's an expensive deal, but residential markets still are very strong throughout the country.
Well, and the city and county here are looking for more affordable housing. And they're talking about increasing.
What is affordable housing in Santa Fe?
I know.
That's what we're trying to find.
That's a tough one. Yeah, but they're looking at increasing density, and so that,
Yes.
maybe that's a,
And the state of Washington just passed a law saying they are now going to allow multifamily construction in neighborhoods that have been limited only to single-family residences.
Right. I think the policymakers are really in a tough spot on this. I'm not envious of any
Yeah.
sort of governor or city leader, because because housing really is one of the most important things, and it's really challenged right now. And so, let's be optimistic that some solutions will start revealing themselves. But currently, it's going to be tight for a while.
Yeah.
So what are each of your predictions for end of year? Do you think our transactions are going to increase? Do you think values and average prices are going to increase?
I think values and average prices may continue up at a much slower rate than they have been. I think the interest rates are probably going to, wobble between 6.5% and 7.5%. I don't have that crystal ball, but that's just kind of what it feels like to
Yes.
me. They've been there for a few months. What else did you ask me? Inventory. I think inventory will probably come up a little bit over the summer, but I bet it follows our traditional trend and starts back down towards the winter. I think.
So you think this year a buyer coming to the market may have a little bit more to look at, but they're probably going to pay a higher price than they paid last year or the year before?
I think so. Well, we did trend down a little bit after
Yes.
after 21. So compared to those years, who knows? But I think that our trend over the past 30 years since I've been in the business is constantly up, and I think that we will still see that, but at a much slower rate than we did over the past few years. I think it's going to be a while before our inventory increases.
Yes. Gabs, what is your analysis?
I don't think I could have said it better. I'm pretty much in agreement there. I think we're going to see, I think people are going to start to get used to a more normal real estate market. Over the past 2.5, 3 years, we've had this rapid market that's moving so quickly and everything's going up. And just looking, earlier today I was looking at numbers from 2018, 2019, and they're, the trends are looking pretty similar to that of those markets.
Yeah.
So I anticipate, we're going to see a slight rise in inventory in the warmer months, the summer months, and it'll taper off in the winter months. I think we're getting back to normal in Santa Fe, which is good.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Kyle?
I'm still pretty bullish on this summer. I think it's going to be a pretty strong summer in the real estate sales, and the fundamentals are still there. So I feel like demand, pricing, all that, it's still there. So I think we're going to continue to have a pretty healthy market. The big questions I'm asking are, what's going on in the banks? What's going on with the Federal Reserve?
Yes.
It feels like to me there's some sort of reckoning with this stuff that we have not seen yet, and so I'm not doom and gloom, but I just feel like something's gonna shift
In the works.
and it'll have an impact, and it'll have an impact on our local market, and it'll have an impact on how buyers and sellers choose to relocate or conduct business. And so I'm trying to make sure that we stay nimble, and can respond accordingly, because there's always that one thing you don't see coming, right?
Like a global pandemic.
Well, there's that. Yeah. So it just feels like we're ripe for some sort of shift, and so I'm trying to be optimistic while also being realistic.
Interesting. I like getting back to normal, almost boring, but I don't think we've had that kind of market in a very long time.
I'll take boring any day. Yeah.
Normal and boring, but with a significantly decreased inventory.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it gives us a chance to sharpen our tools.
Yeah.
So.
So
That's exciting.
This is what I mean when I think leveling off. We're getting back to more normal. More 2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were talking about the incidences of fraud. I keep hearing this weekly from a broker in the office or from a title company officer. There are some horror stories out there. And it just says to me, wow, slow down, ask questions, be curious, dig and confirm.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Pick up the
Yes.
phone and call.
Yes.
Sometimes email's not always the most reliable means of communication when it comes to things like wire instructions.
Yes.
So picking up the phone, calling your title officer, calling your broker can make a big difference in situations like that.
Yeah.
Well, and let's be honest, this is one of the double-edged swords with having everything online. It's very easy now to pick up listing photos, address information, maybe even owner information, right? Most of that stuff is public, whether or not it should be. And
Yep.
so, from someone looking to do, some sort of fraud or scam, it's out there, and so I think people need to have their antennas out pretty sharp and make sure that they're paying attention to what's happening.
And speak to whomever, some nasty evil person calls you wanting you to list his house. You talk to him, you ask him all the pointed questions. If he doesn't know how many bathrooms he's got in the house, that's a red flag.
Red flag, yeah.
But they won't know everything.
Yeah.
And when you get that text from me saying, I need you to go buy me a gift card and send
Right.
it or something like that,
Boy.
it's not me.
Those are my favorite, though. I can keep on the hook for about 2 hours
Yeah.
before they realize I know what they're doing.
So are you saying that wasn't you? Oh man. Thank God it was the company card. So let's end on a high note. So I want to thank everyone in the community that came out and supported the Espanola Humane Society
Yes.
this last month.
Oh.
It was our first time ever doing a drive like that. Here at the office, like really focused, bringing people together, and what a success!
Huge.
Oh,
It was awesome.
Oh.
And we got to play with puppies.
Yeah, and we got to play with puppies, so it's like really a win-win
Yeah.
for everyone. And so, I look forward to developing more of these opportunities in the
Yes.
future. And so, keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure we have other events. And speaking of which, I just want to throw it out there. The Santa Fe Century is next month,
Oh, great.
in May. And so we are a sponsor again in honor of Robert Romero. And so you'll see some of our Barker brokers and staff out at the aid station in Galisteo again,
Yep.
and it's hosted down here in the rail yard. So we have that to look forward to this coming month. So
Awesome.
yeah, a lot of great events coming. Then we have the concert series coming back this summer, and
Tons of exciting stuff.
Kind of feels like it's getting busy again. So
Yeah.
just want to end on a positive note. It's like, hey, things are good. Life
They
is
are
good.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
Celebrate.
let's celebrate it and be
We
happy.
are grateful and full of gratitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. We'll see what happens next quarter.
Yeah.